Well, well, well. We have come to the conclusion of this story. This immaculate, disastrous, treacherous, disheartening, and hopefully lesson learned story. There's a lot of things to be taken from this. There's a lot of things that I questions that have been answered, I guess you could say. But the remaining point at the end of the day is whether this was quality or more to be left on the a lot of left on the cutting room floor. We gonna dive into that, y'all. And this finale, it definitely left some on the cutting room floor. What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to the DeAndre Way. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel and tell me what you think about the series. We have finally made it, y'all, to the end of the American sports story, Aaron Hernandez biopic, essentially. This was a journey. We started 10 weeks ago. 10 weeks ago, we started talking about this. If you ain't seen the previous recasts, make sure to check them out. And I didn't really know what to expect of this. The main reason I started covering this story is because I saw it plastered all over New York City by the bus stops. They have not billboards, billboards on the bus stops of this. And I was like, Aaron Hernandez, I watch football. I do a lot of sports content if you've been to this page. I know about this guy's story, but I didn't know the intricate details of what went down. Now, that being said, I didn't really care to know the intricate details of what was going down because, I kind of it just wasn't a pretty story. But, I decided to give it a chance. And I'm glad I watched it. I learned some things that I did not know, and I kind of rehashed some things I did know. I think that overall, this series did provide some good context in what went down. Now, a lot of misinformation, a lot of stipulation was put out there as well when it came to Mr. Hernandez. And I don't know if it was great for his family to kind of relive this thing, but they don't really care about his family like that. Hopefully, they got some kind of payout for this, I would imagine, using their image and likeness and whatnot, and telling a story that they all had to unfortunately relive because I guarantee you the real people involved in this, they're getting their phones blown up right now. They're getting re-immersed into this life, and they're having to divulge in all the emotions once again, which nobody really wants to have to deal with. That's why a lot of the times when they do stories like this, it's way after many years has passed to kind of dive back into it, especially doing a reenactment biopic of it. But with that being said, it was an interesting series, fascinating, and like I said earlier, disheartening. We're gonna get into the finale episode, y'all. I appreciate you for joining me. If you have made it this far, we have come to light. I will say we have made it to our final destination. No pun intended, Aaron Hernandez style. But we begin the episode with the doctors. The doctors dipping into a brain, which we can only assume is Aaron Hernandez's brain. But they're opening up a brain and they're studying it, and the doctor's like, "Oh my gosh!" And then it cuts. And so we soon see Aaron Hernandez is setting up his bed and sheets in a precarious way, and then we get another cut. We're getting. One thing I do like about it is they started the beginning with the end, as you'll see when we get to the end. But we got a precursor, and a precursor of what's to be at the very top. But if you don't know the story, you can be like, "Huh, what's going on?" And then it'll all kind of flow. Now I think they should have done this at the very beginning of the series, the doctor scene, just to implant it. But then again, people might not be trying to binge this show. Who knows? That's what I think they should have did. But I understand why they did it for this episode alone. We soon seen Aaron talking to Tanya, his cousin, through the prison window, and she's going through chemo. She has a bandana on. She's not looking too good, very pale, and they're kind of going through everything, just talking, just trying to keep some kind of uplift going down. keeping some hope alive for both of them. She thinks that she's gonna, die before him, and he's like, "Don't say that." And it's a very, very sad scene. This is the theme of the episode: is a lot of sad scenes going down. But yes, poor Tanya. Yeah, that's tough. That's another thing Aaron got to deal with. Aaron soon meets up with his lawyer, and this is the first time we see the lawyer. I don't think we got his name, but he says he doesn't want Aaron to give up, and he even mentions that, hey, I got Casey Anthony out of jail. I can get you out of jail too. Huh? Casey Anthony, the one that killed her child. You're proud of that. Now, if this lawyer was the same dude, then shame on him. He needs to go to prison for that. She needs to be in prison. Uh, if you don't know about Casey Anthony, look it up. It was a very, very, very terrible thing. I'm surprised they haven't done a reenactment of that. Now, I don't know if we want to see that per se, but if anyone's going to do it, it's probably going to be Ryan Murphy. Let's be real. But yes, his lawyer thinks that he got him pretty much everywhere he needs to, and awaiting when the trial is coming up per se. And Aaron's looking at him like, "Look, I don't know. I might be cooked." Aaron don't even think he's getting out of jail because he knows, like, yeah, they found the car and they got, you know, all the evidence. I might be cooked. But soon, uh, the lawyer also mentions that Sherrod is still coming after Aaron as well. So he has multiple things he has to overcome and deal with until he's scotch free or free in any capacity. And the lawyer says, "Hey, well, we need your family to show up for you. We need your family to back you on this." And he's like, "Who you got?" And Aaron's like, "All right, well, I'll talk to my mom and my brother and my wife, of course." But of course, then again, his well, not wife, but girlfriend, Cheyenne, she she's stuck between a rock and a hard place with her family. Is she gonna side with her sister whose boyfriend got killed by Aaron, allegedly, at this point? Or is she gonna side with her man? Very tough situation indeed. If it was me and I was her, I gotta go with my family. Look. You might either lose your life you live and your husband, well, boyfriend and whatnot, and be isolate from your family, or you will lose your husband. No, or you will lose your family. You'll be isolated from your family and keep your crime-ridden husband who has issues, long-term effects that are not very that don't seem promising. You got to choose family in that case. You got to look at everything, and she just got bamboozled, unfortunately. So, a very very tough decision. I wouldn't wish that choice upon anyone. It's kind of like voting between Trump and Kamala. But we ain't gonna get political in here. We ain't gonna get political. Um, but yes, Aaron soon he's getting distracted by the light in this scene. Like he keeps looking up. He's like, he's getting all distorted. They're kind of hinting towards his brain malfunctions and his head traumas. But good news in prison. Hopefully he's not. Well, I can't even say that. I was gonna say he's not getting his head bashed in anymore, but he actually is. Prison. I did watch a show on Netflix. I didn't review it, but it was where they let the prisoners out 24/7, like in the jail, not like released, because they're usually on 23 and 1. 23 and 1 mean you're locked up for 23 hours, out for 1 hour, but they did an experiment to see how the prisoners would be out, dealing with their own community, open 24 hours with the doors open. And there was a lot of fights going involved. What they do in prison is, they're going to hide, bring you into a room, no matter if there's cameras or not, and then get to it. Stabbing, jumping, the whole nine. So prison is not a place to go if you have head issues per se. They ain't got aspirin for you either. But yes, soon Aaron starts talking to his mom, and she says she's not going to show up to court for him, and she's not going to let him ruin her life anymore. They're doing this over the phone, and Aaron, he's like, you ain't going to be there for me? She's like, I just can't do it anymore. I'm out. His mom is a trip, man. His mom is a trip. She's the definition of a pick me. When he was doing good and whatnot in the NFL, she's like, oh my gosh, bragging about her son. My son's in the NFL. We're gonna get this. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. And in the moment that he needs help, when he's done everything he can for her, I mean, he even fought her boyfriend for her because he was beating her up. And this is the thanks that he gets. I would have had issues too if my mother would have acted like this. Just goes to show you what kind of woman that his mother was, at least in this series. But terrible, terrible. She should. I don't care at that point. He did everything for her. If somebody does everything for you. You got to stick by right by them, and especially if it's their flesh and blood. Like I understand if it's a friend maybe, but this is your flesh and blood. So she's been lost in the music, and Aaron gets pretty upset with this and starts slamming the phone after she tells him that she just can't be there for him. And soon, Aaron starts going to play basketball in the prison courtyard, and it's getting very hostile. The basketball games in the courtyard are not your pickup games in the park. Okay, it gets vile. They doing cheap shots. They smacking you upside the head. They doing anything they can because this is the only way they can kind of get their competitive nature out, essentially, unless you're playing cards or dice in prison cell. But yeah, Aaron gets knocked upside. He jumps over the middle, and things start getting hostile. When I say he jumps over the middle of the court, and he starts fighting a dude that just blocked his shot. And then, he starts beating up on this dude pretty bad up until the guards show up. And the guards start beating him up. And then they hit him upside the head, and then the whole head migraine trauma, I say illusion starts coming, and you'll see it just keeps like with the light and then the bat hitting him upside the head. It just keeps compounding on showing the effects that's being triggered to him when he gets hit upside the head with anything. And that was on the football field too. That was with the lights. That's with when he gets distorted, anything. It's all these things are triggering. And yes, football and head injuries do have a long term effect like that, especially playing professional football, that it can have long lasting terms. Now, me, fortunately, I only had a few concussions, and I don't think they were that serious. But and I don't personally know anyone that had serious issues, but I've seen it. I know people that know people that have had these issues, and they still deal with them today. And yeah, it's definitely tragic that he had to kind of go through that as well, especially being in prison where he gets no medical attention. But man, the guards, they didn't care. They don't care. They don't care. Not that they should either. And soon we see Aaron getting a haircut. But I only mentioned this because he had really no hair to cut. And when they cut the hair, he had the same haircut that he had before. I don't know why. That was kind of a waste of time. Throughout this episode, I will say some things they took their time through, and some things I felt really rushed, and then some things I just felt didn't need to be in there. This haircut scene did not really need to be in there. And throughout this episode, I forgot to mention, we get these dudes on this radio, these two guys, and they're talking about the Patriots and Hernandez and his case, and then these rumors going on about him. Throughout the episode, we keep peering back to these radio hosts, and it's insinuating that Aaron is hearing these things on the radio and he's in prison or through somebody else that heard it. But they're kind of narrating the story to us since this episode. That's kind of what sports radio talk is essentially. But yes, soon it is time for court. And we see Sherrod show up. And Aaron Sherrod, they going at it in court. And Sherrod's not having it with Aaron's lies. Gets very hostile. Sherrod, he's innocent in this case. I don't know the real thing Sherrod did per se. I want to know, what he actually did get caught up. I might have to research that. But yeah, it's very hostile in the court scene. Lawyer's telling Aaron to chill out, and it's not looking good. He got to keep his cool. But seeing Sherrod is triggering him because he knows he should have finished the job or he would not be in this mess. Aaron's lawyers are now telling him that Sherrod is telling the prosecutors that he saw him and Chris together. Uh-oh. Saw them together in Cabo, and they are trying to use that in court and use Chris to testify. Woo! Boom. Now, this is where the initial rumors came up. This is where the rumors came up. And Aaron's like, oh no, hell no, boy, y'all done up and done it. He does not want Chris to testify for obvious reasons. He does not want Chris to take the stand. He does not want Chris to say a single word. He doesn't even want to see him involved in this because if this gets out, even if he were to make it scotch free, he couldn't handle that. He couldn't. And this is all hearsay as well. None of this was 100. I mean, you can't really prove this, but this is a tough situation as well because on one hand, maybe Chris would have Aaron's back, but on the other hand, it could also very much damage his reputation even more. So, I mean, there's not much more of damage he can do to his reputation. So, Chris taking the stand would just be another pillow on the bed to plow down on, you know. But it was definitely interesting because in the previews, I thought he was going to take the stand, but he didn't. Well, as we go too soon, he didn't eventually. But unfortunately, this is where the rumors came unraveling, and Aaron tells his lawyers, like, "Look, I don't want nobody knowing this. Just keep it. Oh, keep it on the DL. Keep it on the down low. Nobody has to know, but people will know." And Aaron denied. Their lawyers asked him, like, "Are you in a relationship with this dude?" And Aaron's like, "Hell no," and said Chris is just some F word who wants something from him and he wants to dead it in the water. Well, the lawyer's like, all right, well, we got to tell Cheyenne about this and because we don't just want her finding out. And so they tell Cheyenne. I keep saying her name wrong. Apologies, I keep saying old sister girl's name wrong. Cheyenne about Chris and what is being said, and she can't believe it. She's like, "There's no way. This is impossible. I know him. He's not that kind of guy. Why would he lie to me? Blah 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 blah." Well, maybe not the why did he lie to me part, but just is baffling her as everyone else, and she just can't believe a word is being said that Aaron could be gay, um, and she just like, "There's no way. There's no way. Not my Aaron." Well, girl, if Aaron did all these other things and he's sticking around, and she probably don't remember the specifics, but the part when he's like, "Oh, it's my trainer who called me," maybe the bells will start clicking. But like I said, this is all kind of fluff to make her. This is all fluff added that we don't know if it's true in the real life or not. But yes, she is rightfully confused because Aaron just is in her version of a gay dude that's not Aaron. It's the complete opposite, which it's actually factual. Well, factual in not her case to where they're not all the same. Obviously, and she just can't picture that going down. She just can't picture it. Well, then she also said she doesn't want her daughter hearing the garbage. She doesn't want to hear from Chris or anything like that because that really would scar her daughter too in the future. And her daughter's dealing with enough, and she doesn't want her just have to follow her. Unfortunately, in today's day and age, her daughter's probably about. This was in 2013. And the daughter was about 2, 3. The daughter's probably like 12 or 13 at this point, and she's probably getting spoke to about this. So she's gonna have to really kind of like understand everything now and in the coming years, especially when she gets to high school. Well, the judge soon denies the court to hear the plaintiffs testify on this Chris's gay story, and Aaron and his lawyers they dodged a bullet. And yes, Aaron has two lawyers, and he has a convo with one of the lawyers. The two lawyers, one of like the main one and this big fat dude. And the big fat dude, he talks with Aaron afterwards, and I can't remember the specific thing he said that showed Aaron that he was gay. Um, but Aaron eventually finds out, and he's talking to his lawyer, and he's like, "So, how did you like figure that out? How did you know?" And he's asking the insinuating questions on his case because he's in, essentially in the same boat. And the guy's like, "Look, like I just knew. I just I'm just how I am. I just this is just me." And it's kind of you can see like the light bulb kind of clicking in Aaron, like, wow, like this dude is my lawyer and he's representing me and he's like this and I'm who I am and I'm like this. And it's kind of like you see the kind of the bells both ringing in the good way for Aaron to kind of like realizing and understanding that everyone is everything is not as simple as he might have thought it was or whatnot. And it's a whole matter to divulge into. We don't gonna divulge too deep into it, but Aaron is basically like figuring out, okay, I'm like this, he's like this, he's a good dude, and he's helping me out, and he just wants to learn how to find. I guess the base part of this scene is getting to is he's trying to figure out how he found out how the lawyer found out that he was gay, and Aaron's trying to find out the same thing. Um, Essentially, that's my take from it. But they're having a little moment per se. Well, soon the court finds Aaron not guilty on the first case, which is crazy. I did not know that. I thought he was guilty on all charges, but he was not guilty on the first case. And they kind of rushed that scene a little bit. He's like, all of a sudden, just zoom back to the court case. He's like, not guilty. Okay. And he's like, okay. Lawyer's like, okay, good. We got another one, though. Good luck. And so throughout the episode, like I said earlier, the two radio hosts are going in on Aaron, and then they put his business out there, and then they also, say the fact that, oh, the Hernandez might be gay. And it's on the radio. And that's how this got spewed out there. Now, I'm going to have to look into it, how about really got spewed out, if that's accurate and whatnot about the court case. And we'll see, just for my own 2 cents. But that's how they made it seem. And the inmates find out in the prison. Now, I don't know how much radio access and TV access these prisoners get. I typically, sometimes I see videos on X about prisoners living the life. They have video games, they got TVs, they got whatever. And then some that I see on TV, they're locked down, nothing. So who knows how much information they're actually getting. But I do know they probably have a TV somewhere. It might not be the best, but they get general news. But anyways, the inmates find this out and they're all trying to clown Aaron. They're trying to punk him like, oh, you really like this. You really like this. And it's Aaron is not taking kindly to this. He's getting very defensive. He's getting very hostile. He's getting very frustrated. And his life is crashing down again inside the prison walls. The walls are shrinking in on him at this point, and this is not helping his migraine issues. But yes, they're clowning him, punking him. And in this high testosterone alpha environment that he can't get away from, oh, this is torture. This is literal torture. And soon Hernandez gets real high. One of the prisoners gets like a joint or something for him, and he starts getting real blazed. Real blazed, where everything's turning red and whatnot from our vantage point. And so Aaron gets so high that he sees his dad come visit him. Now, if you don't remember, his dad is dead. He died like in the second episode, I believe, second or third episode. And he's talking to his dad, and his dad, he has this like interesting, how do I put it? This interesting convo with his dad. Not really about anything of substance, but his dad just says, I can't believe like you were so successful and whatnot, and you conquered your dreams, and somehow you ended up in here. And it's kind of disheartening because the dad, he did everything he could. Well, in retrospect, the positive things was getting Aaron to play eventually in the NFL for the Patriots, with a lot of negatives added to it. But it kind of like, unfortunately, what they said at the beginning is, a lot of people in his shoes would end up real successful or dead. More so the dead part. And that's soon what happens. But before we get there, yes, he has this, like, he's still talking to his dad in his head. And soon Aaron starts having flashbacks to everything in his life. The Patriots, a little bit of college, quotes that people were saying to him, Cheyenne, Tim Tebow, Sherrod, etc., his friends, the drugs, the actions of his life. Everything is coming to accumulation right now, and he's seeing the light. The light is coming closer. It is coming closer. And soon, you know, he crashes out. And by crashes out, I mean we find then after this flashback mental phase, the guards come in his prison cell and they find out that Aaron Hernandez has hung himself. He is dead. I believe he took his shirt and tied it to something on the top and then was able to hang from it. That was it. Now, he had to tie that really tight, of course, but he did that. Don't know if he was high or not while he did it, but he did it regardless. The guards come in and he had John 3:16 written on um, his face or his forehead, and John 3:16 written on his wall, and it looked like it was in blood. And if you don't know what John 3:16 is, John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." Now, this verse is considered a summary of the gospel. It explains that God sent Jesus to earth to save people from their sins and show them how to live. And it can also imply the only of its kind. It's a very popular Bible verse. And yeah, he should not perish and have everlasting life. A very if you go to church and in Jesus, it's a very deep verse. It's a very popular one too. But yes, that happened, and soon we cut to Aaron's family talking about what to do after the death. They're just disheartened. They can't believe it essentially, and they're dealing with the aftermath. And they have to decide whether to get Aaron's brain studied or not. And his mom doesn't want to, but it's weird that his mom wouldn't want to at this point, but she didn't want to help him out and like be there for him in court. That didn't really make sense because it's like, why do you care now? Didn't really understand that. But yes, the Aaron's family and his Cheyenne and his brother, they really wanted to find out what was going on because he really started acting weird before he got arrested, and like things were really amped up with him, and they just want to know why, because his behavior and change was not sudden, but it wasn't always there. The behavior wasn't always there. And so they decide to get his brain studied, and the doctors soon open up his brain, like we saw in the first scene, and they say they said his brain began to shrink, and he has lived. They say his brain began to shrink, and if he were to continue living, he would have had less than 10 years to live until his brain was fully impaired. And that's how bad, essentially, they said his brain was. It was rotting. It was very much well damaged, and probably the worst that they've ever seen. So that, you know, kind of makes everything make sense to a degree of his decision making. His decision making was impaired. And that's why it accumulates the fact of why he did all these things, because it was, and why it didn't make sense, because his brain was shattered essentially. It was like scrambled eggs. Therefore, his rationale was completely gone. Therefore, common sense didn't really apply to Aaron. It was just taking action. I listened to some tape recordings of Aaron in prison, and he seems like he's just kind of going day to day in prison. He's not too down, he's not too high. He's just kind of just like whatever. When typically most people would be depressed in prison, especially if they were in the NFL. And you always got to look at the bright side of things, I suppose, in any situation. He was able to do that to a degree, but his brain was mush. His brain was mush. And we soon have the last scene with Cheyenne seeing some kids play football in the distance. She just looks over there and just smiles and cut scene. And that's the show. Woo! Y'all, this last episode was powerful. It was powerful. It definitely gave us all conclusions. Now, I think the rushed part was Aaron hanging himself. That was rushed. I don't think they wanted to focus too much on that, but that was kind of rushed. I think the whole, excuse, Jesus, dropping my stuff. I think the whole part where everyone's like, assuming he's gay, that was kind of rushed. And the whole part with, I thought he was going to have an interaction with Chris. He saw him, but he didn't say anything. I think the aftermath was kind of rushed a bit because there was only like a few minutes left after he died. And I know he's over, but uh, we got to see the talking heads from the sports figures like Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman. Everyone discuss, oh my gosh, Aaron Hernandez is dead. I can't believe it. This, that, and the third. I wish we got to see more of the aftermath. That's my only kind of main gripe with this episode. But it was a tall tale sign of someone who crashed out due to their surroundings and due to their environment in the most part, and it was just sad to see. But for the overall arching of the story, I'd give this series a solid 6.5. It was interesting at times, but other times it was kind of just comical, as I've said in the past. Quality watch. I would let somebody watch the first couple episodes and let them see what it is like, but I'd tell them, like, look, it's way different than the last few episodes. Like, the mood is way different. But yeah, that was the American Hernandez American sports story. Now, before we go, we're going to get into this excerpt of the lead actor, Josh Rivera, who I am trying to get on the podcast, y'all, to talk about his experience on it. I know some people that know him and they're in contact right now. We working on that. But I just want to hear his point of view on it a little bit that came out yesterday. This article on latimes.com. Josh Rivera tells how Aaron Hernandez CTE and sexuality informed an American sports story finale. So, closing out the 10 episode season, the FX Limited series dramatized the final days in prison of a young man haunted by ghosts and riddled with guilt who saw death as the only possible release from his inner demons and his pending legal woes regarding various murder indictments. The episode titled Who Killed Aaron Hernandez shies away from simple answers that question. Instead, it stresses how internalized homophobia, toxic masculinity, an emotionally stunted father figure, an NFL team eager to coddle its players, not to mention the effects of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, courtesy of a lifetime on the field, all played key roles in violence that doomed Hernandez's life and career. Josh Rivera, the actor who previously starred in West Side Story and The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, skillfully anchored his portrayal of Hernandez in the many contradictions that affected the Connecticut-born player through his brief life. As he died just 27 years old, in his hands, Hernandez could be both irascible macho guy who fired shots in cold blood at strangers and friends alike, as well as the doe-eyed wounded boy who just wanted to be loved by his dad and found comfort in the arms of other men away from the eyes of his fiancée. Rivera talked to the Times about his breakout performance, and this is what he said. How has it felt seeing the show now come to an end? He said it's been a really interesting experience. There's just a lot of firsts that are happening right for me right now because I've also never done an entire series, which is a whole different muscle in itself. It's been real relieving for it to be just out. I mean, it's out of my hands. There's nothing I can do, and whatever people want to feel, they can feel. And then in general, career-wise, I have this thing that's probably not uncommon for actors to have, but every job that I do, I finish it, and I'm like, all right, it was nice while it lasted, you know? I guess that's the end of the road. I have this unease perpetuality about that. And now something I'm finally really exciting is the amount of conversations I'm having about this developing stuff and being more involved in the creative aspect of things. This show was the first time I've ever felt like I got to take any sense of ownership over the overall product. I wasn't a producer in it or anything, but I had an open line of communication with everyone who was creating it, which was the first time that has ever happened to me. Next question was, we're not going to go through all these questions, but let me see. Hold on. This isn't a biggest question. As an actor, did you approach knowing you'd be playing Aaron's from high school years, his death? Let me get to the important. What was mine scene? Especially, I think the scene is stress. You enjoyed the fantasy approach of the scene. Look, y'all, if you want to read the whole article, it's in LA Times. This is a very long one. Uh, which we'll just talk about Josh real quick. Which raises the question, what's next? I'm working on something that's very, very in development right now. Hopefully, we're going to get writing at the top of next year. I've also just been very inspired to write. I got together with a friend of mine, and we're working on a pilot for a comedy series. It's very exciting. I've always wanted to write, and I got really addicted to this sense of ownership over my creativity while I was doing this project. So yeah, there's a couple things. Hopefully, I can be a little more specific soon, but I'm really excited about it all. So yes, that's some words from the lead actor, Josh Rivera, from the show. uh, did a good job. I think with Aaron Hernandez being dead and he had to just use the vantage point of watching him from afar and on TV. There's not really a good sense to get his personality, so I think he did quality work with this. And carrying the series is not an easy job. He's playing a essential sociopath and a dude with bipolarness, so he has to do a lot with very limited info and very limited resources. Because who knows how much actual real resources he had stemming from the real issue helped him on this. So shout out Josh Rivera, man. He killed it. He did a good job. And I'm excited to see what's next for my brother, my Latino brother. But yeah, y'all, this was the conclusion of the Aaron Hernandez America's Sports Story on FX. We out here. We did it. We conquered it, and it's on to the next, which we will see what that will be. I have a couple ideas of what that might be, and you might have a couple ideas of what that might be for a series that we will follow. But y'all, I thank you so much for joining me. I thank you for this journey. I thank you for continuing to be with a brother through this process. Every Wednesday night, every Tuesday night, the show came on at 10 o'clock at night. Very late for a show to come on, if I might add. It was hard. I wanted to go live for this last night, but I just couldn't do it. I was so tired, y'all. Ending at 11 o'clock at night wasn't easy. But it was easy. I'm glad it was on Tuesday because I'm always home on Tuesday able to watch it. Don't usually have too many things going on. But it was a very interesting story. As a former college football player myself, I enjoy seeing the football stories. That's my that's my area of expertise to a high degree. I have a lot of areas of expertise when it comes to dancing, music, sports, uh, school, a lot of different things. But football is something that I grew up on. It's something I can relate to a lot with any circumstance in sports in general. And I was able to, and I lived through this, real time. I remember this. So be able to go through it and put my stamp on it and kind of put my lens on it and see where everything's coming from, it definitely was enticing and enjoyable as an actor and as a former athlete. So definitely, personally, I liked it from my vantage point because of all the similarities involved with the story. But yes, y'all, I thank you once again for joining me. Till next time, we gonna be back at it. And yeah, y'all, that was it. So peace, blessings, deuces, and have a great rest of your day.